Oops, touch screen. Board of Education. Meeting is called to order. Very Board of Education meeting is called to order at.
10:30.
Roll call.
Mrs. Foley,
Here,
Mr. Lady. Here. Mr. Roberts. Here. Mrs. Tresker.
here.
Mr. Welch. Here.
Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Motion to executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22, letter G and 1. I hereby move that the board adjourn to executive session for the purpose of considering the employment of a public employee or official.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lady.
Yes.
Mr. Roberts. Yes. Mrs. Tresker.
Yes.
Mr. Welch. Yes. Mrs. Foley.
Yes.
Mr. Roberts. Yes. Mrs. Tresker.
Yes.
Mr. Welch. Yes. Mrs. Foley
Yes, sorry.
and Mr. Lady.
Yes.
I have a question. Are we, do we have a motion in and out of work session and then in the
Actually,
regular?
it's just one meeting.
So
I know.
Yeah, close that here.
we're gonna start with our, welcome, hello, everyone. Our discussion items this evening. So we had, talked about having a work session and I sent an email out to everyone and asked for some information and we were just having. We thought it'd be a good idea to look and see how things are right now after the couple years that were in flux with COVID and looked at things like what do our lunch sales look like? Do kids on campus, kids off campus? Kind of just looking at everything that we do and provide for kids. We know that we have a lot of kids coming and going every day. We have an open campus. And so we were talking about, look at that. We want to talk about what does this all look like? What does open campus mean? And how does it impact? How does it impact lunch? How does it impact the day? What's the process for it? How do we monitor students coming and going? I think we recently talked about closing the bridge again between the two schools for safety concerns to make sure that no one could access through the buildings. That was unexpected or unwanted to go through, and just a whole list of things here too, talking about student badges, coming back to that, revisiting that, because I know that's been a conversation in the past about students having a badge and having to swipe, and that also came up in terms of, would that be a good tracking system for students that are, you know, exiting the building, entering the building, so that way if something ever happened, God forbid, we need to know who's here, how many students we have, who's here, who's not, that kind of thing. So these would be good conversation starters. So this is the first time I'm seeing this packet that we have tonight.
Yeah.
Everybody can take a look at it. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
Well, you can see obviously the meal summary. You know, there's a definite difference back when the federal government was allowed or paying for lunches and they were free. And you can see we dropped off quite a bit this year with 142 days in. And at the high school for sure, we're way down, and at the middle school as well. And so, you know, again, we think that from talking, and again, it's not data other than just speaking with folks, is that if I have to pay for lunch, it's less expensive to pack and do it other ways than go and buy all the time. So, you know, we've seen a big percent drop. In all
Yeah,
buildings.
and if you look at those 2 years kind of COVID, 2021, the numbers went up. But people didn't really realize that everything was free until kind of like mid-year. Last year, when they realized that and it was extended, numbers really shot up.
What is that number then? Is that's not a dollar amount?
That's total lunches served. for the
Lunches
year.
served,
Yes,
okay,
or breakfast served.
okay.
You know, so, and I guess we'd have to dive in, you know, but if you look at the reduction, I mean, maybe the biggest reduction is actually at the elementary school.
Mhm.
So,
But enrollment's quite a bit down from elementary school. Too.
yeah. Well,
No,
like
It's not
11
as much
kids.
as high school.
11
Well, I'm looking from 2018 to.
Well, actually, if you look at the elementary, look at 1920, which is the year we shut down in March,
So it's about the same
Versus-
timeframe.
the 22-23 current year.
Mhm.
So those numbers are pretty comparable for student enrollment as well as the year.
Mhm.
And but only about lunch numbers down significantly.
well, yeah, look at the elementary. Was 10,000 higher at the same time. In
Yeah.
2020.
As was the high school,
And
but the middle school is kind of right in line.
do we know why? Because the enrollment is the same,
Now, high school enrollment's down 160 kids,
so elementary. So the
I don't know.
reduction of $10,000 less,
1,000 meals.
10,000
Lunches,
meals.
Yeah. No, I don't know. We can ask that.
That's interesting.
What do you think, Mr.?
So the question is.
What's different now in elementary with the big reduction in lunch buys versus back before COVID in 18, 19?
So even pre-COVID, it's down 10,000.
Yeah. So the year that we closed in March of 2020,
Maybe,
$10,000.
we were at
maybe 100 kids a
2020.
day, 1,000.
2,000 lunches.
That's pretty significant. That's significant.
Did something happen with the lunch period time in that year? Or like since then, since 20, because I remember there was a year where we shortened lunch times, didn't we? Added more recess elementary, moved recess or something.
You know what? I'm actually circling that number.
We lengthened them.
I'll circle back with Vicky. Because
Yeah,
I'm curious.
that number really
That's
stands out as
pretty
an anomaly.
yeah.
Because I wasn't there the year immediately prior to pre-COVID, but the
So
year
this-
prior in 17, 18.
It shouldn't be
they
pre-COVID.
Feel, those years feel very comparable. You know, the pre-COVID numbers now, lunch lines look very.
A lot of packers.
similar. A lot of pack,
A lot of
packers, people came right out. I mean, people obviously took advantage of when there was not only free breakfast, but you're probably also, not free lunch, but you're probably looking at breakfast too. And breakfast at the elementary school is much more of a significant.
That's actually up.
Than at the middle school. Breakfast is a big deal, so that factors into the difference.
So lunch, breakfast numbers are about the same.
Breakfast is actually up.
Pre-COVID,
Yeah,
No,
so you
so
look,
when you
if you
say
look at
pre-COVID-
1920,
Hold on, I
We're
want
gonna
to be
get
clear.
this handout in our hands
Sorry.
soon.
It's not
But you guys don't have it
pre-COVID.
here.
Jack,
But I think.
Jack said pre-COVID. I'm not. I want to compare the 2019, fall of 19.
Yeah.
To March of 2020, when school closed.
Mhm.
So that's approximately
Yeah.
a couple weeks off of that.
yeah, sure.
So that 19 and 20 year is a good comparison to now. So if you look at that
Up
column
until-
and this one, do we have a
Yeah.
copy of these?
So we're down.
We'll
10
do
to
this.
the
We're gonna take your directives and we're gonna go and figure it out.
Okay.
And then come back with
Yeah.
some better, just as we look at these numbers, because yeah, it's not fair to Jim to be off the cuff here. You don't know right off the top of your head?
How many applesauces were?
I think the lines at, and this is just anecdotal, but the lines at the elementary school during the free lunch period, the COVID free lunch period were extraordinary.
Yeah.
They were absolutely extraordinary. Middle school, not so much, only because that, truthfully, a middle school student was looking and they're like, forget that.
They don't wanna
I'm not-
stand in
I'm not
line.
waiting in that.
Yeah.
line.
Must be.
I know my own packs because they don't want to stand in line, but,
I'd be curious to know if people change their money.
well, it's also the economy right now is not great either, so I wonder if that factors into it.
Yeah.
Is
It's
a la
interesting.
carte factored into that?
Yeah.
at all?
no, these are just.
So as the kids get older,
They don't,
there's more a la carte options and those that doesn't count as a lunch.
But for the elementary,
No, no.
but like the high school's down 10.
But you're, like, our 7th and 8th graders will do more a la carte. I know for a fact my high school kid, because I look at the
Yes.
bill, it's,
Yep.
it's almost all a la carte as opposed to just like a lunch, because there's a lot more choices.
Right, the elementary is pretty lean on a la carte choices, so the kids are more inclined to get what we're considering.
And that'll show up in the revenue.
Yeah.
So if we
Oh.
look at the revenue.
Wouldn't show up in the reimbursement.
Hmm?
It won't show up in. your
No, not at
lunch
all. That's where, it's-
reimbursements.
yeah, so we need to look at straight revenue.
So
I
this
would
is
actually
nothing,
expect them, that with the economy being dead, you could expect the lunches to go up to the
Right.
free and reduced lunches where they have to get the complete lunch for free and reduced lunch, right?
Got a lot of,
that's what I'm-
there's a lot of people that are hesitant to fill that paperwork out.
Yeah,
That's all.
which is why the free lunches for everybody was such a nice thing.
how are the students identified when they go through line if they are qualifying for free and reduced? Do they enter a code? Do
They all,
say it?
all students going through enter a code,
Okay,
and then.
so no one would know the difference.
No.
No one knows.
Okay.
No one
They
knows.
just put their number in it.
Okay,
Only the person on the screen knows. They just click it.
okay, that's good.
Just by the price.
Okay.
Even if they're buying an a la carte item. Either they have money in their car or account or they don't. So sometimes the students denied an a la carte item if they don't have money in their account, but it's done equitably between free groups, some students or not, so it's really common to see as well.
Next.
Work permits, we don't have any figured on that, so do we know what?
Yeah, that's all entered, that's all through the state system, when we tried calling and weren't able to get that.
So don't we require the student to complete some type of work permit to leave the school building early every day?
No.
Or they can just leave?
Yeah, if they have juniors and seniors can have late arrival or early release. It's not work permit days,
So they can leave for any reason.
yes.
I think we should make sure, is that what our policies line do? Early release, I think we need to look at that policy to make sure. Yeah, I don't have that policy line off the top of my head, but just thinking of it. Didn't know, oh, so we were talking, we were just gonna discuss, you guys, anybody can jump in anytime, just looking at the list here of things that we're putting in, that we put on the agenda. Parties, absences. Have they increased, decreased? And I know this spreadsheet that you gave us shows a variety of different types of absences. And the numbers are so inflated because it's by block, is that accurate?
Yes,
So I think we just get asked a lot about open campus. And so I don't think it hurts to review the numbers to make sure we're making the right decisions on open campus, the safety, security, and everything else in mind.
so do we want to start off defining what open campus is?
Yeah. can you talk about it?
Explain it, define it.
I mean, there's a lot of different-
I have no idea what it is.
So all freshmen and sophomores are gonna have fully booked schedules. Fully booked schedule looks like 4 classes in the fall, 4 classes in the spring. They're booked. We do have a 20-minute ice block in the middle of the day where students are able to move about the campus, see a teacher, meet with activity groups, even leave campus, which was more of a recent thing in the past couple of years. And so if a kid has a 20-minute, has the 20-minute ice, which everybody has 9 to 12, and they have a third block class that starts 3A, they have to be back for that class. And we haven't run into a lot of issues with kids getting back, and just looking at the tardy numbers, they're pretty much in line. Back to 2018-19, when we were a little bit more shut down. So freshmen, sophomores, full block. Juniors, seniors have an opportunity to take an early release, late arrival, not necessarily an overly widespread piece. You will see for different reasons, the kid avoiding class potentially, and even maybe the kid that's taken 2 or 3 AP courses and playing 3 sports. I've seen that pattern as well with some of our highest achieving students.
I'm sorry, seeing what with that?
For example, kid takes AP Bio in the morning, takes AP Calc, and has an English class, and takes a early release.
So for juniors and seniors only.
Class.
Only juniors and
only.
seniors have open campus, not
Right.
freshmen or
No,
sophomores.
But during
No,
lunch,
no, please.
everybody can leave for lunch and come back.
Yeah, ice and lunch, you're allowed to leave,
Freshmen, sophomores too.
freshmen, sophomores as well. Yep,
So ice is only 20 minutes?
correct.
Do they really have time to leave in
Yeah.
20 minutes and get back on time?
There's probably 200 kids in the cafeteria during that time.
Oh, I'm saying leave campus, so they're not actually
Yeah,
leaving.
there's a lot of the freshmen, sophomores will stay on campus unless there's 80 degrees, right,
Okay.
ice day. In the winter, during that ice time, there's
Literally.
70 kids in the media center, there's 200 kids hanging out in the cafeteria. And keep in mind, juniors and seniors, because of CCP, Auburn Career Center, PSL, welding programs, a variety of activities that a lot of our kids are coming and going. may not be on campus at the time anyways.
Is ICE the same time for all grade levels? Just held in different locations?
Yeah, 10:40, 11 o'clock every day.
Every day, 9 to 12.
And lunch get back into that.
And lunch,
So-
lunch you can back into
Which
it if
means
you
it's
have
not
a
20
3-day
minutes,
lunch.
it's- How many?
Could be up to 50 minutes.
Right, so 50 minutes gives
You
you.
could, okay, then you do it.
then
If
you
you
have time to
have
go
that
work.
3-day lunch.
Even kids
Okay,
with the 20 minutes at times, I'm looking at the drivers, not walkers.
make sure that they're on our track. Okay.
So even just if you sat outside our school and you watched every time the bell rang, right, at 9, 10, and then 10:40, 11 o'clock, I went 40 by reading all the times off. But people are coming and going constantly because we got kids headed over to PSL in
Mhm.
Manchester building. We have kids maybe headed off to Lakeland, Lake Erie, Kent State, Case Western for a CCP course. Maybe they choose to take an AP bio class in the morning and then second block, they're going in a time slot to a college campus. You have
So
all,
they're driving unless they're going to Auburn, they could be riding a bus for.
yeah, and all, some students do drive to Auburn as well. So even before we were an open campus, you see every time the bell rings, there's people coming and going. So,
So a concern that comes up with that is that how do you know at any given time throughout the day, how many kids, in the event of an actual emergency, like how many kids you have on campus?
we take attendance at the beginning of every block,
But except for lunch, you would be taking attendance, so you don't know that.
correct?
And you don't know for ICE if people have left or not, because they don't have to check in or check out, they can just go.
Correct.
So those would be the gap times where like, if there was, God forbid, an emergency on campus and we needed to know how many kids were in the building, we don't know.
Right, during that time.
Okay,
But let's say there's a lockdown with the Alice train that we've had. You're not gonna, like, people are gonna evacuate the building, that's part of the training. that we
Right.
do. So I don't know how accurate your count would be. In that situation, either way.
yeah, but if there's a situation where you have to clear the building and make sure everyone's out, that's where it gets a little bit.
Yep.
More difficult. So I think that that's where the question of the badges is coming up. Because if we had one point of entry for all the kids, I mean, I'm not suggesting like badges at every entrance, I don't know that
They
that's.
don't badge out anyways.
No, but, because we don't have badges,
But even so, they
We
wouldn't badge out.
right? But we would know
We
who
would
was
swipe
there,
in, we'd know who's here.
by a process of elimination, you'd know who wasn't there.
Especially if it's during that lunch, that period of time where nobody's accountable. Because when you come in the morning, first block is attendance, so you know who's here.
That just makes me wonder when we all badge in, if someone badges in and we're all together, we all go in for my badge.
Yeah, that's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
when we
That's
went to,
unavoidable,
when we
but
visited the Emerald,
Yep.
building, you walk through the, whatever those things are called.
Yeah, like the
And they,
security scanner and stuff.
yeah, and they pick you up automatically. Cause because the congestion, the bottleneck of trying to do that, would be very difficult.
I don't think we're suggesting it like in the morning when school starts.
No.
But just if you're one of those
Could be
ones that you
dependent.
wanna come and go anytime, maybe you have to, that privilege is
A swipe out,
a
swipe
swipe in
in,
and swipe out.
So you know who's there.
like
Yeah.
for lunches or ICE,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
not necessarily, I mean, I don't think it's practical to do it at the beginning of the school day.
I don't either.
But you have attendance, first block,
Right.
and at the beginning of every other block. It's,
I think it'd be costly to put it swipe outs. And I'm not sure.
What's
kids-
the difference?
Well, tell me where they're gonna swipe out.
The doors that they enter and exit, how many doors do they use? Two?
There's 3.
They're allowed to go out
And,
3 different
and,
doors?
and again, so
Those three.
go back to, you'd have to put the scanners on the inside. But
No,
they may not even use
technology
it.
now, you can.
you may not use it because you can't have it locked unless they scan.
unless,
'Cause
The technology can be built in differently now. It doesn't have to be like on this side of the door and then, oh, now that you can't get back in, you have to scan it. It's,
you can't have the door locked unless it's scanned.
no, not locked, but I mean, it's.
But you-
See,
just saying
the
that-
technology we have, when I go to Disney World and I ride a ride, they know I'm on that ride, because I have your magic band and it's got a
Right.
little thing in it, it tells you where you are, like a badge. I'm not suggesting we train our kids.
So
everywhere
what-
they
I'm
go.
not saying we're unlocking necessarily unlocking doors.
No, like,
Tell me how you're going to catch every kid walking through the door.
I don't
They
know
do
the
it now.
technology.
The technology does it. I can't.
I think it would be costly to do that.
Well, I think it would be good to know. Like what the cost would be.
Because depending
The
on some of
cost
the
of not knowing?
technology, because some of that same technology, especially this day and age, unfortunately, also picks up weapons and things like that. They use the same technology for badges, like it's all built in the software, where they can do, I forget who it was. They're doing thousands and thousands of people every like 60 seconds. And it just scans you as you go through. It's kind of the same things you walk through, like when you go to a Browns.
Look, I get that. I guess. I think putting that at all the relevant doors,
I understand.
you're gonna have a cost.
Mhm.
What are you gaining? What are you trying to gain out of this?
It depends on what if it's not just for badges, let's say it's one of those systems where it also picks up if a student is carrying a weapon. Right, and then it isolates, the system actually isolates and focuses on that one person. They know, hey, this is where that person's at, and it can follow them. Through the technology that they have. I think it's Evolved is the one I'm talking about. So if it's a multi-purpose sort of system, I mean, everyone wants, unfortunately, this day and age, there's some instances that happen all over. West G was just recently, luckily the kid see something with a bullet in the bathroom, and it stopped 3 students at least who were targeted from getting shot that day. And this is just something that might be built into security. But having the badges with a security system that, or whatever technology we need, I think some of these things you can even rent. You don't have to purchase them outright, but you can rent them. And maybe you limit the students to going in through 1 or 2 doors, in the morning.
My biggest concern is knowing if there's an emergency, if we have a better, I know it's not gonna be perfect. I know we're never gonna know exactly how many kids are on campus or off campus. But to be able to know about how many kids we have on campus at any given time, if there was an emergency. And with the open campus, there's so much coming and going. I don't know how close we even are with how many kids are at lunch. It would be hard to know, if there was
So
a
there
God
are-
forbid a fire or something like that.
There's 4 lunch blocks, right? So you take 500 kids divided by 25, it's about 125 kids per lunch block. And there's probably 40-50% of them in the cafeteria. So you have 75 off campus. Every other kid the kids in the cafeteria, you could do a quick count on. All the other kids that are in class, that would have a class opposite of that lunch block would be entered in if the campus is present. So you'd have a decent idea of who's in.
I guess it's sort of like taking attendance for lunch.
Well,
In
yeah,
a way, because if we're taking attendance in all of our blocks, in our classes, we know who's here and who's not. It's sort of like taking attendance for lunch.
yeah. And
I
also
don't know what technology.
to me, I would prefer to have less entry points. For the school. Like a main, because you can't monitor, and you
So-
can't tell when kids are coming in 3 different doors, who's holding a door for someone kids hold doors for
So
everybody.
entry point is pretty streamlined. Since COVID actually started, we bring everybody down into that main lobby entrance. And I would say a high percentage of kids enter through that in the morning, because the other doors.
Right,
are
in the
locked.
morning, but
So unless someone's opening it up for them.
Right.
Now, and if you watch the patterns of our kids, they all come down to that main lobby and come on in. It's when they go to leave.
Right,
You
the
know, if
lunch,
you're working out second block and you have then ice coming up and you come out of that PAC door. Or you're in
Right.
Mrs. Milky's class down in 300, you may go right out, so there's a different exit points, which is
that's
more
the tricky
difficult than the
thing
entrance point.
for me. I think it's easier to monitor who's coming into the building. If we don't have so many exit and entry points. And if you had a badge system, then you have to go in, because you're not gonna put it every door. You'd have one central area that you have to come in and leave at. So it's to me, a little more secure with knowing who's coming and going. Because kids will hold the door for anybody. There's a few kids that probably would look at somebody and be like, oh, you don't look like you belong here. No, you can't come in. But for the most part, kids are people pleasers and they're gonna open the door. So if you have something that could be a little bit more easily monitored. And also having our school secretary having to buzz people in and out. I feel like that's probably a pretty
Well-
constant thing during these times, because the doors are locked, right? So she's gotta buzz in
So
for those couple hours.
Yeah, as their kids leave, there's 100 kids leaving any given time, they're buzzing the door to come back in every single time. She's,
So you're probably looking at probably four, like when they come back in, or what time frame?
I don't know.
Like when.
She might go from first block class, and then maybe second block, they don't have a class, so that kid just goes home for a block. And then that kid comes back, third block. And then while that kid's coming back to third block, someone else is just coming in because they have late arrival, and someone else is leaving because they have ice or they're going to lunch. I mean, it's just. It's constantly this, right? So is there constantly people being buzzed in?
I mean, it's
I
a
didn't
decent
think of
flow,
that.
it's not, well, I don't know that it's overwhelming, but.
But if there was a
Just,
badge,
but there's that period of time when people are coming in and out of the building, it's not,
right,
and then you have an 85-minute block for the most part. The lunches are 30 minutes, so.
but
those
during
people
that
come in.
time, to make it even more secure, you could have one entry point, have kids have to scan in to
Well,
come
we
into
did
the
that one.
building.
There
and-
is one entry point right now.
But they can come in the other doors, like they come in down by the media center,
They're locked. So unless someone's opening it
Right.
for them.
which, yeah. But
Yeah,
if you had
yeah,
like
it
a
happens.
central, a main point of entry for the high school.
Sure.
And you had like during that time in the middle of the day, I mean, we could have the other school I've been to have had their SRO station there during that time of the day to be able to know who's coming and going. Like through that one door. And if we're gonna have open campus, it opens us up to a certain amount of risk. But how do we mitigate that risk and also like keep our kids as safe as possible? It's just something to think about. I don't know, like if it's gonna work. I just think it's worth a discussion.
Do our parents have to sign anything giving their student permission to come and go for like a class block if they have?
No, but we put it in our handbook, and I believe when we've taken phone calls and we'll assign somebody someplace and have a check-in.
Because I will say, I did have a parent ask me that about, oh, didn't know kids could just come home, came home from work and the kid was home. Oh, that's a shocker. I'm one who will always say it's the parent's responsibility, until we're blue in the face, right? It starts in the home. But if you have a 16-year-old that just started driving, they're a junior, they're coming to school, get here in August, think, oh, I got second block off, I'm gonna drive to my friend's house, or I'm gonna go to the store, or I'm gonna go fast food, and then I'm gonna come back. I mean,
And
we're putting,
keep in
and the
mind,
parent doesn't even know, like, that's scary to me.
so, and keep in mind a little bit too. So the alternative to taking classes out of high school is CCP, and it's not always an alternative. Sometimes it's a combination of it. We have 7-hour student days, so it's 35 hours, right? That a kid would be on campus. If you're taking CCP courses and you have a 16 credit course load, you have 16 hours that you're in a class. So if you're a junior, senior, and your mom and dad are gonna support you, you may pick the CCP route just simply based on, I only have to be in school for 16 hours compared to 35. So by allowing a little bit of that freedom and giving kids the choice, I think a lot of times the right decisions are made of what's best for my future in consultation with my parents and guidance counselors. I pick a schedule that's best for my future. And that might be involved taking some AP courses or college credit plus, or being involved in career technical type of pieces. And I do fear if we were to ever tighten it up more so, where there wasn't early release or late arrival, you're gonna lose more and more kids to CCP and hurt some of our own enrollment, which makes it more difficult to maintain some of the program that we're already struggling to maintain as we've gone from 660 kids to right around 500. So
Well, what about? If let's say. Hypothetically, that did happen, say we got rid of, say, the late arrival or early release. Study hall. I mean, every kid needs time to do that. 20 minutes isn't enough to do anything. Whether whether you're trying, if you're involved in any type of extracurricular, that study hall during the middle of the day, however long our classes are. That really helps those individuals who put in all that time, whether it's in theater or on an athletic field or something like that. That could come useful. And I know it's not, I know we have ice right now, but something like that, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, and the kids would be on campus.
You mean rather than going home for a free period?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
I think
absolutely.
he's saying, let's try to keep them let's
Yes.
try to keep them engaged
Right,
and keep them our students while we can on campus.
But what Todd's saying is that you think that would cause more kids not to come on at all.
yeah, well, why not just do CCP then? Then I don't have to come on campus. I'm only in class for 16 hours a week. Why would I come here for 35 hours?
well, I know kids that are
Well-
coming back next year from CCP because they actually miss interacting with their friends.
Yeah.
So they're done with CCP because
I'm just gonna tell
of
you
that reason, but
that, and I'll tell you from the workforce standpoint that I hear from in my job in workforce development is a lot of gosh, these people that are coming out of high school and coming into the workforce don't have to worry about any guidelines and structure. They walk in and out of their, the manufacturers where they work or their employer's place. They think they can go to the vending machine anytime. They think they can come and go out of work. They don't have to sign in, they don't have to swipe in, they don't have to wear uniform. And I guess I question, what are we doing to prepare people to say to students, instead of this, well, you're 16 and you can do whatever the heck you want. We take 2 classes here, we just want to keep you, so because we don't want you to take as many CCP and leave campus, we're just gonna give you all this freedom. Well, we're not teaching them the work ethic either, by having to be somewhere 35 hours a week, to your point, right? We have to work 40 hours a week, gotta be there. It's not a free loosey-goosey, you can come and go during that 40 hours of whenever you want. There has to be an accountability piece. And for me, I feel like we're not doing a service to our students if we're giving that much freedom. I feel like we have some responsibility to prepare students for the workforce. And I guess that's what brings me to the question of, we know how many students go to college. You're expected to be in class so many hours at college. And then if you don't go to college, or you drop out of college, you're going into the workforce. So there again is a large population of our students then from the time they turned 16 and came to this campus, haven't had a lot of accountability when it comes to the structure of their day. And I think for me, I have a hard time explaining that piece of it. That's where I struggle. I understand what you're saying. We don't want kids to go and leave and take CCP. And so if we don't give them what they want, then we're afraid they're gonna run over here. I think that's
No,
a challenge.
I pulled together some data here too, and I think that this speaks volume to what our kids are choosing. For the class of 2023, there's around 150 that will graduate.
Which document are you looking at?
Short one, panorama and class of 23.
So, yeah, it's this sheet right here.
Panorama? Okay,
Yeah, so
Exhibit C.
the very
Thank you.
last, yeah, there.
I can't find. Could you do the font any smaller?
Yeah. If you look at the students with 35 or more credits, 41 of our 130 graduating class, 30 more credits, 92, and 117 of our kids have 25 or more credits. So the perception that it's just sort of this easy come, easy go, that there's no level of expectations or rigor, and kids can just leave campus whenever they want. I would say that data shows that our students are picking a rigorous schedule for the most part across the board. When you look at the state minimum of 20 graduation credit requirements, and you look at that 117 of our kids have 25 or more, I think our parents and our kids are getting the right guidance from our guidance counselors when we get down to that individualized personalization of the schedule.
Yeah, I don't
Picking
question
something
that at all.
that
So
works for that.
I don't question that at all.
College.
Yeah,
I don't question that at all.
Yeah.
I don't. I believe they're getting the right guidance and choosing wisely.
Yeah, so, and I would say ultimately comes down to the personalization of what does each kid need? If a kid needs a study hall and wants to work in a media center, we'll give them a study hall, but not every kid needs the study hall. And so to do a mass decision on just because we want some kids to have a study hall or other kids not, I would still say, let's look at it case by case with students. We have the resources, with parents and the students that need what they need. And I think our people do a great job of advising and putting people in the right spots.
I don't disagree with that at all. I kudos to our counselors and the offerings that we have, because I think you guys at the high school do a great job of making sure our students have a lot of opportunities. A lot. So I definitely agree with that.
So, and we've worked with parents that if they don't want the kid to leave, hey, we'll book up every part. We'll have them check in the cafeteria. We're here to serve. We'll make sure your kid has a full class and go hang out with Mrs. James at the media center if they need a place to be. I just think of some of our higher end kids that are off doing such great things with PSL and some of the different programs that we have, internships.
So you're
And
saying-
restrict it.
I don't think we're saying restrict that. are
So
we?
kids that don't
I don't think
demonstrate
anybody's saying.
responsibility are limited in their ability to travel. In other words, if they show that they can't go to the market as responsible people and they're not getting back on time, what does Mr. Ernest do?
Yeah, they would have a check-in during that time with an adult on campus.
What about, I mean, I know we sign our kids out for, medical and stuff like that. I mean, if there's not a tremendous amount of work that would go into it, I mean, couldn't someone sign out, say, hey, PSL, and then sign back in, so that way we even know that they're there? Or CCP, I mean, it takes, what, you're walking out to your car, you're driving, it's gonna take you, what, an extra 10 seconds to stop in, or
Well,
you're
their
just going back
schedule
to
will
play?
tell where they are, right?
But I'm
I
talking,
think it's mostly like the lunches,
right,
like, and for me, it's just a question of knowing where kids are. And if they're on campus or not, I mean, if we're gonna have
Most
open
parents
campus,
track their kids now with, on their.
some do, some
Some
don't,
do.
some really nice and don't do it.
Never have.
Yeah, I get the sense that it's probably a majority of that too.
My children are tracking me, so.
They're also pretty good at leaving their phone with a friend, so the parent thinks they're there, so.
that's happening.
Yeah, there's
There's always
always
one up on you.
or somebody carries your badge.
The biggest concern that
Here,
I'm
yeah,
hearing,
keep my badge, because
Yeah.
I'm running off to here with this person.
The-
In your locker.
just the concern that I hear that comes up is the safety of knowing who's coming and going and who's on campus. So
Yeah.
that's the one that, like, I mean, if we're gonna keep open campus, then how do we do it in the safest way possible?
And I think our kids, like, through the first couple years that we've had this, I would say it's been a pretty positive response. I think we've had one call from the market of inappropriate type of behavior that we worked with them and through the local police, and it came to a good resolution. I'm just not hearing of issues that our students are, we try to be good neighbors. There was an issue with some younger kids cut through. We remedied that situation. So I think our kids have handled it pretty well, and those that haven't, we've been able to put in individualized plans to keep it there.
When did
Yeah,
we
we
go
all
open
struggle with the security, right? Like, it's a scary thing.
When
It
did
is.
you go?
You hear the West G thing.
When did we go to open campus?
We went with the lunch piece around COVID, right? Because
So it's relatively
very
new.
limited space. Yeah, we've always had kids come and go on
Right.
CCP. You can see the data in there. It's swiped hard, probably in two thousand
Well, we
sixteen.
certainly want kids to have those opportunities.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't want
Right,
to
so,
squash any of those
yeah,
opportunities.
I like working, and Scott does a great job working with parents of kids that aren't handling that well, and we have the right supports with the media center and different resources that are available to.
Yeah.
The good news about a small school is our administrators and teachers know the kids.
Yeah.
And so the intruder piece is sometimes more worrisome to me
That's my
than
worry.
what our kids do.
Right,
Yeah.
It's somebody with bad intent that isn't one of our kids coming into the campus, and
Right.
you can't, that's the fear, because I don't know how you prevent them from getting access. You just can't, it's so hard.
I think the two things you all mentioned tonight that gives us pause is the question about weather, will always bring us nightmares. But also when you ask who's here and who's not during those two periods, like that gives us pause. I don't think we can answer that. right
Yeah.
and the safety, kind of piggybacking on the safety issue. And I know this was an issue before, maybe in the fall, and I think it might have, I don't know if it was the middle school or high school. DoorDash, Uber Eats, all that easy laziness. Is there any issues going on with that at all? Because I know that, there's been people saying this, I mean, it's just not safe. You don't want anyone from any of
Yeah,
those
so
DoorDashes.
we have a weekly BLC meeting, which is a union and administrative meeting. It did come up at a high school BLC meeting. We set some guidelines in communication with our staff. I've never seen Uber Eats person enter the building. I have seen kids go out and we have the conversation with the kids about the safety concerns over that. Because they'll wander down maybe out of the cafeteria and the person will come bring it into that little group on the flagpole.
Right.
Yeah, other than like giving that kid consequences and, dealing with it right there. That could happen on any type of campus.
Right. I'm saying,
I just don't know how to completely eradicate that,
just not allowing it.
right?
Like, because I know we weren't allowed to have that stuff when I was through the school, right? And so when it did happen.
It didn't exist when you
I
were.
was gonna say.
It did. No, kids were ordering Domino's. I remember it very clearly. They were ordering Domino's, it was being delivered, and it was a problem. And so they nixed it right away, like Sater put down his foot, it wasn't happening again, and it didn't. Because we have, they were watching that, so I don't know if that's something we can say, hey, just, to the students, staff is, I don't understand staff is different, but students, like. No, I mean, you bring your lunch, buy lunch,
Or go leave campus.
or leave campus so you can drive, but don't don't order.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's.
But I think like,
But I don't think it's a widespread
More-
issue and we can handle it on a.
Yeah, we had one student last year in the middle school who did it with Chipotle and,
that's
we-
creative.
one, and we split the burrito and it never happened again.
That works. You worked it out. As long as it's worked out, so you know, it doesn't happen. Yeah.
I just
I'm
want to
just
make,
always envious when they get something good on the grades.
I want to make it, you should make sure that everybody realizes, I value, I'm looking at the one that says college level courses, and then it goes on to the college employability program.
Yep.
All of the opportunities that our students have here, because we're looking at the whole student, not standardized test scores, but looking at everything. Looking at what we provide for kids and what opportunities we have, and I believe that we are doing an excellent job of that. I think it's important to highlight all of those career opportunities and programs and internships and places our students go, because they wouldn't have these real world experiences in some cases. So never want to squash those and want those to continue to grow. I want to make sure that we have things in place to continue these, in my opinion, especially as our numbers dwindle down. Just want to make sure that we can do that too and do it safely.
I think what we offer is great. The opportunity is fantastic. I mean, my youngest wants to be a part of the home, you know, the project renovation. You know, now whether she can work on that with her schedule, that's a whole nother conversation, but. You know, so I think like those opportunities are huge for every student. So, I mean, the more the merrier kind of when it comes to that, just because everyone's not gonna follow the same path.
Yeah.
The discrepancy between the $22,000 and the $12,000 difference between 22, 23 and 20, even though it says here closed on March, we did continue to serve. So that number, that 22 number took us through the end of the school year. So it wasn't just that September to March window.
Okay.
We continued to serve each week meals
Okay.
for reimbursement.
That would explain,
That was the church's meal train, so we continued.
that would
I
explain.
think some of the.
Well, no, actually, Vicky thinks that 12,700 is an error. I checked it for.
Thank you, that helps.
She's gonna give
That
me
makes
that.
sense.
She's gonna
Yeah,
look at it tomorrow. and I'm
all
gonna-
year, it's obviously more limited.
Right,
We weren't doing this certainly volume, but it continued to accumulate even through our closure.
right, okay.
She said we're serving about 200 meals a day. So that number should be more like 24 to 25,000.
Okay. I think these are conversations we should continue to have, not necessarily right this minute. We can,
Yeah.
I think we also have some time to look through all these. I
Mhm.
think these are good things for us to have and to look at and talk about in the future and continue to realize how much we do for our students here and what a great district we have.
And again, I hope that the full-time SRO at high school.
Yep.
Provides more consistency as far as both visibility and recognizability when unusual things are happening. Or may happen, because we're all creatures of habit and routine. And so if we're there on a daily basis, you're gonna see something out of the ordinary, and hopefully we act on it.
We also have a police department across the street. I think that's
Yeah.
something we also forget. It's right there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very engaged.
And I will say, for somebody who lived in the middle school cafeteria for so many years and has seen the high school cafeteria, there is a lot of value for the district in what happens with the high school lunch and allow for that disbursement. The value that we get in terms of increased security inside the cafeteria, and then subsequently the security of students as they flow into classes. Because you don't have what you essentially have at the middle school, which is all the students in place for a certain period of time. So they do get a lot of residual value in allowing that release, and it helps to quell issues that we just don't know that we would have had. And there is definitely value for the building in that. Comparatively, having all students in a fixed place for an extended period of time.
Thank you for that explanation. But this other one here, we got an email too that has information. I think we just need time to digest it and read it over and.
Yeah.
revisit it another time.
When we went to.
The badges and the quotes.
Kellogg and
And then-
went to Independence and talked about, they were experimenting with facial recognition fees. At that time, the feasibility of it, they were struggling to deal with it. And so it'd be interesting to see how they're doing now. as they've had it for a year and a half.
Just a reminder and a copy of the dress code policy that we have. Um, Everybody wants to look at that. Review the policies, we have that on here too. I think we had some questions, this, the timing here is because we had been talking about policies while a lot of this stuff came up. Questions we get, what's your policy on X, Y, and Z, what's your policy on open campus, so this kind of goes right into that, since we have policies to review this time. Anyone have anything they wanna, that jumps out, they wanna start with?
Since we were, I don't know how much you wanna jump around, you wanna go in order, like,
You can jump.
all right, so. The one that I had a concern with. If I could find it, was the, I think it was on the removal, expulsion, suspension of students. Can't remember if that was it, there's a weapons one, isn't there a weapons one?
610.
Yes, removal, suspension, expulsion.
Is that the one that had the discussion of weapons? 'Cause the,
Firearm or knife?
yes, okay,
Yeah.
so in the firearm or knife section. We have it listed that. The student would be expelled for 1 year for bringing a firearm or knife to school.
May.
No, it says shall, unless the student is criminally excluded from school, the superintendent shall expel a student from school for a period of 1 year for bringing a firearm or knife to a school building or on any other property. And on a case-by-case basis, you can reduce the time. I can certainly see where in living in a semi-rural area where a pocket knife or something could inadvertently be brought to school in a backpack and pocket, whatever, like I think that happens even if it's not ill-intentioned. I can't see where a firearm would be brought to school inadvertently by a student, so I really feel like that should be a permanent expulsion in our policy if they bring a firearm to school for any reason. I mean, because I just can't see where that would be explained away.
Pocket knife doesn't fit the definition of a weapon.
Well, it
So
says
it's-
any, it does in here,
It's actually the size of the blade.
okay,
Well, this,
I always have to look it up.
I thought this said everything.
this set of knife is defined as any weapon or cutting instrument consisting of a blade fastened to a handle. The razor blade. The razor blade.
So I could see how that, I mean, a year suspension and at the discretion of the superintendent, like that makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
But a firearm being brought to school. That should be a permanent expulsion. With, I mean, maybe there's a reason that that would happen that like. Could be, I just can't think of one.
If I have a firearm brought to school, I'm expelling for a year.
You should expel them permanently.
Well, by law, I can only do a year. By law,
That's the law.
yeah. So, I mean, we follow Ohio Revised Code, and again, anytime, we'll work with legal counsel at those levels, but yeah.
So if the student brings a gun to school and we find it, if they have bad intentions or whatever, a year later they can come back.
Well, hopefully there's, there'll be criminal charges that ensue, and they could be put in juvenile detention, and then we'd have to pay for their education while they're in jail. I mean, then, but, we're gonna have to, educate them for sure.
But to her point, if a judge subsequently lets the kid out and is free for some reason, they have a right.
15.
If it's
They right to come back to school.
School, and 3 years later, they're off of juvenile and they can come back to our school at 15.
Yes.
With, and again, of course, there'd be conditions, we're not,
No, obviously, but I mean, it's just,
yeah, if free and appropriate education, I mean, yeah, I think that's pretty much the case.
So what about these? I'd have to look at like the ORC, I guess, but like permanent expulsion, I see that's on here for some stuff, but. That's not blanketed for an incident where someone would bring a firearm at this point.
And is that year, so if it happened right now in April, is it, then you can return next April? Is that how that would look,
Well, yeah, again,
or is it the remainder of the current year?
It can extend into the, I think for a firearm, it can now, they just changed last year, I believe, on the expulsion piece where they can extend it, cannot extend it into the next year, but I think with firearm, they make an exception there. The expulsion may extend as necessary into the school year following the school year in which the incident that gives rise to the expulsion takes place. The superintendent shall refer any student expelled from bringing a firearm or weapon to school to the criminal justice or juvenile delinquent system serving the district. Yeah,
That's disturbing.
well. So again, where they go when they're out of school. So what sometimes disturbs me more is that I don't know where these kiddos are, but I know there's.
Well, we just said we're letting them,
Well, I mean, I want to monitor, just like who do you want? I want to monitor kids that have been identified as dangerous. And the best way to do that is have them close. To a certain degree, my thinking, to be able to, because again, there's no easy answer. But why are active shooters coming into buildings and certain buildings? Mental health pieces are an issue. And they certainly, as demented as it may be, there's an axe to grind there. And I need to monitor these kids, we all want to monitor kids and try to get them out. The best way to prevent an active shooting is to not let someone become an active shooter. And I know we can't always control those things, but part of educating the whole child is we're gonna do everything in our power to provide services and counseling and all those things, knowing that it may not work, but at least we're doing everything we can.
As long as we're simultaneously providing a safe learning environment for the rest of the kids.
Right, and then so we understand exclusion becomes something that's required because you get into a situation where one misconduct can cause enough of disruption that we can no longer have them in that environment. That doesn't mean we can't have them in a environment.
Right.
It just might be in the regular environment. And so all of us next year are gonna be working really hard about how do we provide that balance of monitoring kids, taking care of and trying to help all students begin understanding that our general population environment needs to maintain a certain level of conducive to learning. And when you got a kid doing certain things, that can happen. And we got to remove that student at that time, sure. I think that's one of the most serious conversations. I mean, we've been talking about that for multiple years. And we think that this year we got to a place where we may have to be more extreme on some of our decisions as far as those placements.
Yeah, I don't know if I heard right, but I thought you were also concerned, it sounded like concerned that the gun, if a child would bring in a gun that he may have leniency to not expel for a whole year.
No, it's
Up
just good
to.
for a year,
I
but
do.
he could reduce it if he wanted to.
And I thought you were quite like, do we want to do that?
I mean, I would,
she's saying do the reverse.
She wants to go
Make it
further.
I'm
permanent,
gonna go further.
make it a permanent
You
extension.
That's what I thought I heard. you say.
If you want to do that, you have to go to the courts. You have to follow.
Different.
And I'm all for helping kids and I want what's best for kids, but I just don't know that that's best for the majority of people.
Right. Well, exactly. And those are what the conditions that we're gonna undertake and look at. But we're gonna monitor all kids in this community if we can. I wanna know where that kid is. I wanna know what's going on with that student. That, not at the expense of other kids.
No, because as a
But-
parent of a child in the district, if a kid's bringing a gun to school, I don't really want them around my kid.
Right.
Like, and I think most parents would probably feel that same way.
But unfortunately, in a community and in a public, in a society, your kids are around them all the time. I mean, that's what happens. Go to the movies, you're around.
Generally by adults.
Yeah. But this is the balance and this is the worry. I mean, there is no more worrisome time for educators than the next 6 weeks. We have all these events and celebrations and wonderful moments that we get teary-eyed and eat cake and drink punch. And we sit here and on pins and needles and hoping that everything goes well on the prom weekend, that everything happens, you know, with these celebrations and the kids go off to stay, and we just, you know, there's that balance of letting kids have great memories and go do things, but yet try to protect the things and the people we love the
Right.
most. I mean, I'm a parent, you're a parent, we deal with this every single
Right.
day, so. Yeah, it's hard work. There's no question about it, and I have faith in people here and our community, and that's why we love it here, is that, you know, we're gonna keep an eye on this stuff.
So on the same policy. So on the first page, talks about in the event a student fails to complete the required community service or assigned alternative consequence, the superintendent may determine the next course of action. Such course of action, however, shall not include requiring the student to serve the remaining time of the suspension at the beginning of the following year. So if someone should be suspended for 10 days, and it's at the end of this school year, and say we've got 5 days left. So they would be suspended for 5 days, the remainder of the year. That can't carry over until the beginning of next year, is what this is
Well,
saying.
you have to have a separate hearing and go through the immediate behavior and rediscipline, you can't. Turn off it, you hold things in abeyance, doesn't really work, you know, you can't hold it over their head. But you actually do hold it over their head, because
Right.
you build a case of things that are happening, and so if I give an alternative to suspension and they don't comply to that alternative suspension, I have to give them due process again. So to the principal, to come back in, have a hearing and say, look, you got suspended, we gave you a reduction in time, you didn't follow through with it, now you're getting suspended for insubordination, failure to comply with the agreement, which could be an additional 10 days, or whatever it is.
So you could just, okay,
You
I
just-
make sure
you
that something
tag
else,
on.
they didn't get away with it. I just was making sure I could understand it.
And, you know, and if you ever know our expulsion hearings, I mean, we pretty much make that clear. I think we follow through with that pretty well.
And then I had another one, when it comes to a student who, gosh, it's on this second to the last page, in the middle, so the superintendent, shall initiate expulsion proceedings against a student who has committed an act that warrants expulsion under board policy, even if a student withdraws from school prior to the hearing or decision to impose the expulsion must be imposed for the same duration it would have been had the student remained enrolled. So if they withdraw before anything is done, and they were gonna be expelled for that, say, 1 year. How does that, I'm asking, how does that work? Is like, is it stayed if they withdraw?
Well,
Will
we
they
would
try
still
to
conduct the
control?
hearing, last scheduled. And then, you know, we would make our disciplinary decision based on, even though they withdraw or enroll. And then if they go to another, and based on the law, compulsory attendance and education, they have to re-enroll somewhere.
Right.
And so that district then, you know, asks for the records, they would get our disciplinary records, and they get to choose whether to uphold the expulsion or to let it go.
Okay, so it falls.
And most parents believe that they can withdraw and avoid all the consequences.
But it's
But we schedule the hearing, we're having a hearing. If they fail to show, it says in the letter, I believe, you're expelled.
Right.
So,
So I just didn't know if it was one of those where like the student was, you know, the hearing and they were gonna get expelled for 6 months, they just like disappear. Try and come back the next year.
they do. I mean,
Right.
that happens, and again, it follows.
Okay, so it's kind of like a state sentence. That's
But
what I'm trying to understand.
the incoming, the district they choose to enroll in has the choice of
Right.
honoring the expulsion or ignoring it.
Okay,
That's the difference.
as long as it falls on for someone.
But. Are we good with that? The next one I have is on graduation requirements, 5460, just like really clerical
We
things.
can do all, take a couple minute recess.
5-minute recess?
Yeah.
Do I need to pound?
Yeah.
One more
We
for
need to- we need to-
2 lumps.
This sounds over.
Sorry.
Graduation requirements?
Put them in.
I need to get back on campus.
Yes, graduation requirements.
Campus is closed.
Okay. Policy, I'm gonna jump around just to confuse everyone.
If you what?
5460, just under course credits required for graduation. This is just like a clerical kind of thing because it says they must earn 24 credits in 9 to 12. Does it have to be a 9 to 12? Because kids are earning 7 to 12, right?
Correct.
So can we fix that to say 7 to 12 just so that it's
We call it high school units, high school credits.
That's a great.
I don't see, I can't see the.
So,
Because it says up throughout this whole policy,
Can
it
you see
says
that?
grades 9 to 12, but they don't have to be in grade 9 to get high school credit. So can we change that to like
can we just take it out?
6 to 12? I think they even can get them in 6, they get half a credit for Spanish, right?
You could actually be promoted.
Can we just take that out?
Take
and
the
don't-
age
not
of
say
that
what
one?
grade?
Say 24 years.
For high school credit.
I mean, credit.
Because
Period.
I mean, if we're,
Leave that.
Correct.
okay.
It's even a gifted student could kind of be in 6th grade could be. next
Right,
grade.
so we don't, according to this policy, those wouldn't count towards their high school graduation credits, it's just to make it
And so
clear.
if they get all the credit by the time they're like the 10th grade, we get rid of them, then we don't go tracking it out.
Exactly.
But then they can't come at all.
Enrollment will go way down.
You can't come.
Okay,
Don't worry, Lou, they'll find a way. What was the next one?
I don't know. So I think if I have another one.
You got that.
There was so many pages. here. The volunteer policies we scratched and then we replaced it, correct?
No,
We have 3120.09, 4120.09, both are volunteer policies.
Those we would say.
Okay, and then where is our actual?
8120 is the replacement.
You know that.
Are we on?
We're not on one.
we were just randomly. There was one in question or something that changed.
I just wanted to know, those two were scratched and I saw another one, I didn't know which one they were going with.
I asked them about this.
Of course. You can eat.
And then the part on the actual 8120 that says this note that should be modified if second option in the preceding section is elected. So we have to decide who is going to obtain the cost of obtaining the permit for the athletic activities. That was open. So on
Right.
8120, at the bottom of the first green section under volunteers for athletic activities, it says right above where it says general requirements.
Yeah,
The cost, is it this gonna be at the board's expense or the volunteer's expense? We have to decide that?
we do it, yeah, right now it's at their expense.
Should be the volunteer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mark, that was an option, yeah.
Just checking on that. Oh, and then on policy 8390,
Animals,
yes, we have to allow service animals by law, which I'm all for. Therapy dogs, we have come in and out of schools, which is great for the kids. When it says in here that we can allow students to bring emotional support animals to school.
No,
I don't know that that's a good idea.
nope.
Because they don't have to have any really credentials. I mean, it's very easy to get an emotional support animal, and I mean, we're not thinking like. Doesn't have to be a dog or.
becoming
We
puppies soon.
we should get a lot of animals. I don't think we should have that in there. I don't think we should allow emotional support animals.
We have one.
what was Moskowitz's dog?
Therapy dogs.
Is that emotional support therapy?
Oh, no, we can allow them, but like, we don't have to allow students to be able to bring them.
There, if every kid wanted to bring one.
Isn't it?
I mean, I have no problem on a case by case basis, like allowing animals to come in.
I'm just wondering here out loud, would we get a medical excuse for that
That would be a service animal though.
No,
therapy?
so there's a difference. So the service animal, the animal itself is trained.
Correct.
A emotional support, you can get a doctor saying that they need emotional support.
Yeah, I don't-
Doesn't mean that the animal's trained.
If we don't have to allow that, I don't think it's a good idea to allow that.
They're ferret or parrot
Or
or
a snake.
whatever, yeah.
Like, yeah. I think we should take that out if we can.
C will take out.
And then it's on page a couple times in here, so. Can we take that out?
I had the superintendent may grant a student use of an emotional support animal on a case-by-case basis if necessary and not disrupting the environment of others. So we don't need it, if we're not gonna allow them, then we don't need it,
Mhm.
right?
Correct.
And when you get it, no, I'm just thinking, what do we do when we get the physician's letter?
We don't allow emotional support animals.
Yeah, you don't have to. It's not required by law. The service animal is. What do you do when you get it on the airplanes? Well, allow it. They charge $100 a person.
Now we're.
$100 per person.
And they have to have a tag.
In this policy, it says that if a person is going to be on campus with a service animal, that they are required to show licensing to the administration. Do we have any procedures in place for that?
Do we have any kids?
No, not necessarily kids, but if an adult or family comes onto campus and they have a service animal, we do have to allow them to have the service animal. They have to present documentation that the animal is in fact a service animal.
Service, not therapy.
No,
right?
a service
The thing that
animal.
breaks down is the events, like games.
Correct, but we
I-
can
that's-
ask for that.
We could certainly ask, I don't know who
Tag
did,
in the vest. I think there's a, they
Right, but I wanna-
have a tag.
My concern is
Vest.
that somebody would bring an emotional support animal or a therapy dog that's not necessarily a service animal. And we have to allow service animals that are trained to a certain degree on campus, but we can allow people to show documentation that that is in fact a service animal, not a therapy animal or anything like that.
Whatever, it would be based on our policy, right? So what we
Correct.
have to
Yeah.
allow is service,
The
but we
worker
don't have
task,
to allow therapy.
the worker task performed by a service animal must be directly related to the individual's disability.
Correct. So-
And, the provision of emotional support, well-being, comfort, or companionship do not constitute work or tasks for this purpose.
So if someone appears on campus at an event and has a service animal, what is our procedure for making sure that that is in fact a service animal? Because it could be anyone saying their dog's a service dog, and that dog could not be trained and could be a hazard to anyone around them.
Believe there's-
So I think.
yeah, we don't have, we're not set up for it. I mean, our people that are supervising the events aren't prepared to ask for that stuff or haven't been trained or,
But we should be.
yeah.
So like at our board meeting recently, we had someone walk in with one, we would stop them at the door.
And say, well,
Would that be your trouble or mine? No, I didn't.
we just do this.
That's typical of honor.
I mean, because we have an obligation to make sure that that dog is trained and not a hazard to anyone else around, right? Like, so if it's not a trained animal and they say it is, and it bites somebody, our obligation was to make sure that it was in fact what they said it was.
Well, and we let dogs on campus. There's another, I don't know what policy it is, but we have a policy that talks about dogs on campus. Cause if you come here any point in time and we've had,
Sure.
That's
we've
different.
had,
That's indoors.
A school event,
but
a basketball game.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I do, and I don't have an answer.
Okay.
So,
Well,
I do see
Let's
that
work on that.
when the student gets to college and they have an emotional
Oh, I-
support animal that college doors bust.
emotional support animal.
Fair housing
And.
law.
And.
They can't. They have the law,
So-
we have to allow service animals, but
So-
they have to prove that it's a service
Well, the
animal,
policy says that,
right? But we have.
but we don't have.
We're
a
not saying
procedure.
Yeah, we are prepared to comply with the policy.
That would actually wouldn't fall in policy, that would fall under administrative guidelines anyways. We would have to have an administrative guideline for policy 8390.
Okay, do we have one?
The superintendent's designee shall
I like that.
assure
language.
that all rules are
All
followed.
right, can we do that?
I'll get on that right away.
I can have a light for that.
My second
That's
priority.
exactly what
You
I
didn't
think.
need a recess to get started?
Is the highest.
That's what it is. I think they're wrong.
I think that's wonderful. I mean, campus.
It's an algae article.
Article in that.
So we were-
You wanna bring your dog around campus.
So we're removing the one, what, section C,
The emotional support,
so then going further on the other pages to just cross that off.
the superintendent may grant, yeah, emotional.
So then should we remove D or not?
These there,
Therapy dogs can come on campus. I mean, we have,
We actually have one, don't we? Isn't that
I
what,
know it's ours, I'm saying.
Yeah, but
I
we
get
have-
what you're referring to. You're just referring to the emotional support that are like coming to events and stuff.
correct.
Other
No,
people
yeah,
bring-
like it has to be a service animal to come and it has to be documented to be a service animal.
There is an ADA definition we might need to follow. I'm reading a little further.
Oh, yes. Staff are not allowed to request any documentation for the dog Or require that the dog demonstrate its.
That's a service animal.
A
Yeah.
service animal, we can require,
This is from ADA.gov.
We have an option to take out emotional support, and I think we do that, and then we'll deal with the therapy piece and trying to monitor and make sure they show proper
The
documentation.
ADA does allow miniature horses.
Yes, it does. And birds.
What a parent, verbal.
Birds.
We'll dress with a pirate, wear a parrot, we're good to go.
Sure, like,
We just want a mechanism to enforce. the
it's
law.
illegal to put a service animal vest
But yes,
on
it's-
a non-licensed service dog.
It's legal to put a handicap sticker in your car too and park in the handicap spot.
Like I can't
Never
dress as a
happened.
police officer. You can't impose as a therapy dog if you're not one.
Uh,
Or service.
service. Right, and for some reason, I think there's like a
light right
like a
on it.
tag that goes on the vest.
I don't really know. That would be,
But I can't remember. Yeah, and there's their license number is in
well,
there.
that would be convenient. I mean, the most obvious choice, I think, I would assume people would question.
We just want to make sure we're enforcing our policy.
Correct.
I'm learning more about it than I average.
I know. Good little PD session we're having. Okay,
All right, thank you.
I think that was all I had. Is that
is
enough?
that it?
Appreciate that. There's another bad comment.
Oh, good.
Everybody meeting yesterday. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe get it tomorrow. All right,
You're never done.
anybody, anything else, anyone
You know, bring the meeting.
ready to?
Well, we were gonna talk about the retirement reception
Location.
location.
I didn't move on yet, I was looking, that's what I'm looking at,
Oh,
is this
okay.
list of stuff, that's okay.
We have a list.
First 7 is review policies,
Okay,
nobody else has anything on the policy, so I think we're on number 8.
Just to be clear, though, we don't have there aren't like a bevy of people walking in with them.
No.
It's a good thing to knock out.
Yeah,
I just don't want you thinking that it's been an issue to.
no, it's just,
We don't have any kids coming in with animals.
yeah,
We don't have, I've never had an event where someone walk in with an animal and claim it's an emotional support one. So it's not it's a good one to get out ahead of, but not an issue that we're.
okay, good.
Gina, floor is yours.
we have 14 retirees this year, so the majority of them show up for our little, cupcakes and water, and they each bring one guest. We're not gonna fit in here. So, I'm thinking maybe media center, or if anybody has a better idea
What about somewhere even bigger? Why not the gym? Pack,
here.
no, not this gym.
We have
Somewhere on
a
campus.
reception, then we go into our meeting. Hardy Cafe was pretty good.
Is that where you're referring to?
Yeah, like have the
Oh, okay.
little cupcakes and water out in the.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds like a good
I didn't
idea.
know that. Yes,
Call the spring party.
I'm not allowed to anymore.
that's fine with me.
Okay.
I don't. Anybody else? And that'll,
Yes.
Oh, we know that works. I mean, we had meetings
Yeah.
in there, so we know
That
that do
would-
it.
Okay,
happy
That
minute.
sounds good.
I just didn't want to
It's a large retirement class.
get it very much.
Yes. And I want all of them to come. Okay. We're good on that? Okay, all right, standing items, I don't think there's anything here to review. And since we're talking about Furnace Cafe or the media center, we'll modernize it. Anytime soon. I want to make it the place where kids want to be. So they all want to go in. Number 4, committee reports. No. Meetings, nothing. Okay. Administrative updates, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you. Last week, you may know the Ohio Safer Streets tip line was used. We received a call at about 8 o'clock, and we just happened to be all in an interview at that time regarding our campus, and the message was quickly dispatched to law enforcement and handled the situation immediately, and Again, we had some students from Lake Erie College on campus, and they were going through a little bit of a scenario of an active shooter. One, I guess, was a victim of an active shooter, and they were explaining that, and somebody overheard and did a very good job with making a description, got a plate number. The plate was Huron County, and through multiple connections, we were quickly able to identify the kids and contact FBI, do background checks, and the bottom line is that I just want to thank all of our safety forces for their quick actions, and also, and just to remember, seeing something and saying something works. And it's just proof that that system is out there, and if you use it properly, it can do a lot of good things. And so kudos to our safety forces for being there to serve and protect us. State testing has officially begun. And Rob still looks good. And we'll continue for the entire month. Again, thanks to Ms. Bernal and all of our staff for the planning and preparation to ensure a seamless as possible operation and testing. I went to the middle school staff meeting last week, and the level of detail was remarkable. When to press pause, when not to press pause, pretty good stuff. So thank everybody for all that work. And on the legislative front, the House substitute version of the budget bill came out last night. HB 33 was released. The public utilities TPP amendment that we've been lobbying for was not included at this time. And so we'll continue to work through that. There was draft language proposed that included the House version that related to TPP evaluation limits for all power plants. That was pretty much came out of our language there. So again, early, they were going to committee, finance committee, so we'll be back down there, and we'll find out what they're thinking about with that extension language that we're trying to push through. So the work continues down there for that. As part of the 100th anniversary celebration, the Walt Disney Company and Disney Imagination Campus are recognizing exceptional teachers from across the country who reflect the creativity and imagination of Walt Disney. We're excited to share that Mark Soder is one of 100 teachers nationwide selected for this honor because of the wonder, creativity, and imagination he brings to the students in our school. So Mark will now have the opportunity to engage in workshops and curriculum development at the Disney Imagination Campus, and will no doubt use those experiences to benefit our students, our school, and our community. Congratulations, Mark. That's an outstanding accomplishment. And lastly, I'd just like to remind everyone that we will be honoring all our retirees at the May board meeting. With the number of staff leaving us, we probably will need to change our venue and need that. So we're all good to go. That concludes my administrative report.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Gina, is there anyone concerned up for public participation?
Yeah, thanks.
Consent agenda? Do I have a motion? For Baker. Second, and local.
Who's second? Mr. Trustman?
Yes.
Mrs. Foley?
Yes,
Mr. Leidig?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts? Yes.
thank you. Okay, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Foley. Under personnel acceptance of resignation, the board is asked to accept the resignation of the employee noted as recommended by the local superintendent and assistant superintendent. Under B, personnel approval appointment classified, the board is asked to approve the employment of the individual noted. The condition and rate of pay indicated pending successful completion of required becoming paperwork, certification training, and background check as recommended by the local superintendent and building principal. Under C, personnel approval appointment summer early intervention evaluation hour. The board is asked to approve the employment of the individuals listed. Complete the 2023 early intervention summer evaluations as required by law at the rate of pay indicated as recommended by the local superintendent and assistant superintendent. Under D, personnel approval appointment custodial, the board is asked to approve the employment of the individuals listed for the positions and rate of pay indicated pending successful completion of required employment paperwork, certification training, background check as recommended by the local superintendent and director of maintenance and operations. E personnel approval appointment 2023-24 athletic supplementals. The board is asked to approve the employment of the individual listed for the 2023-24 athletic supplemental position and rate of pay indicated, pending successful completion of required employment paperwork, certification, training, and background check as recommended by the local superintendent and athletic director. F personnel approval appointment substitutes. The board is asked to approve the individuals noted for the 2022-23 daily substitute positions listed as recommended by the local superintendent and assistant superintendent. G approval of board policy, second reading. Board is asked to adopt new revised board policies listed as recommended by local superintendent, including the additions and changes that we made at the work session. H approval of out-of-state travel. The board is asked to approve travel to Anaheim, California for Mark Soder and Rita Soder to visit the Disney Imagination Campus on May 4th through 7th, 2023, as recommended by the local superintendent and building principal. This concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Do I have a motion to approve? Discussion, question? One quick question. So the approval for both to attend the Disney Imagination part of the, are we approving the situation to leave being paid for by Disney? What's,
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure. Mark was going to get professional leave. And Rita was looking into that, whether she'd be attending and doing professional work, or that was going to be personal or potential.
It was written into the Disney announcement that you could bring in guests.
Yeah, but is the guest or are they doing it, are they involved in professional development?
Yeah, we'll talk about what her plan is for professional development.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to do professional for both of those.
The
All right.
cost is for her, some of the cost is for her, so I believe everything else is covered.
Okay.
And then Allison covers PSL.
gotcha.
That's a weekend, so it's just the fourth and fifth that she's, yeah.
I think it's 2 school days.
Yeah.
It's a Thursday, Friday.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Leidig,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts. Yes. Mrs. Truster.
Yes.
Who's been on?
Yes. First item I have is approval of financial reports for the month of March 2023. Item B, I'm going to pull, that is supposed to go to the wellness committee prior to board approval. So we're going to kind of push that out until I think June actually. And item C, we're for board policy, we get a third quote on that. We're waiting on that, so we're pulling that. So we're not approving that recommendation. So just the financial reports.
So, okay, so a motion to approve just the reports, letter A.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Foley.
Yes.
Mr. Leidig.
Yes.
Mr. Roberts. Yes. Mrs. Truster.
Yes.
Thank you. Any unfinished business? New business. Correspondence and announcements. We received a thank you note for flowers we sent. Thank you, Kurt, here, whoever wants to see that. Magazine. Next meeting date. I'll just go through this real quick. There's no classes for grades 9 through 12 on May 15th. It's a PD day. The next regular board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 16th, where there will also be a retiree reception held prior to the meeting, and that is going to be over in the Parties Cafe Media Center, correct? I never know what the actual title of that room is because we call it both.
That's correct.
Party Media Cafe. No public participation. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Leidig.
Yes.
Mr. Roberts. Yes. Mrs. Truster.
Yes.
Mrs. Foley.
Yes.
I called the library.